Festival. This is the venue called Abhirang. तो रंगों के साथ स्वागत है आप सभी का. I hope everyone has had their lunch और I also hope कि लंच के बाद जो असर होता है, जो थोड़ा आलसपन आ जाता है, वो नहीं आए हम में. तो एक बार ज़ोरदार तालियों से हम शुरू करेंगे इस सेशन को. Thank you so much everybody. This session is titled as Andaman Islands Development, where we'll be seeing and listening from Mr. Ajay Saini ji, Mr. Pankaj Sekhsaria ji, and Vice Admiral Bimal Verma ji in conversation with Mr. Amitabh Pande ji. मैं चाहूँगा इन सब का हम इस मंच पे स्वागत करें तालियों के साथ. I would request the gentlemen to please take their seats onto the stage. Starting with Ajay Saini ji. He teaches at the Center for Rural Development and Technology, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He has worked extensively in remote rural areas, especially the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Northeast region. Ajay takes a keen interest in the hidden stories and histories of India. His popular writings have appeared in Scientific American, The Guardian, Frontline, The Hindu, The Indian Express, Seminars, Scroll.in, and others. We are glad to have you here with us, Mr. Ajay. Mr. Pankaj Sekhsaria is a long-time member of the environmental group Kalpavriksha and currently works as the Associate Professor at the Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Areas, IIT Bombay. He has also worked in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands for nearly 3 decades and has written extensively on the issues there. We are glad to have you, sir. As a third guest, we are delighted to have Vice Admiral Bimal Verma ji, Ati Vashisht Seva Medal Commander in Chief Andaman and Nicobar Command. He is a retired flag officer in the Indian Navy. He served as the 13th Commander in Chief Andaman and Nicobar Command from 19th Feb 2016 to 1st December 2019. Vice Admiral Verma ji is an alumnus of the prestigious Rashtriya Indian Military College and National Defence Academy, where he was adjudged the best naval cadet. I think that calls for an applause, everybody. He was commissioned in the Indian Navy on 1st January 1980 and specializes in communication and electronic warfare. And we are honored to have you. And last but not the least, it's a pleasure for us to have Mr. Amitabh Pande ji with us. Professor Amitabh Pande ji is the director of Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Manav Sangrahalaya. The Bhopalis know it better. Ministry of Culture, Government of India. He is expert committee member in upcoming Tribal Museum in Rashtrapati Bhavan, New Delhi. For the past 29 years, he has been an active researcher, consultant, and trainer with research and consultancy projects funded by international and national organizations like World Bank, GIZ, UNDP, etc. He has also trained senior officers of the SAARC countries, and his most recent book is Corporate Biodiversity Management for Sustainable Growth, Assessment of Policies and Action Plans. I would now sincerely request the gentlemen to please begin the session, and we must go ahead with a round of applause for them. It's on, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that, our introductions, and welcome to all. Yes, we are going to have a very topic which has become very significant in coming last 3 years, because in 2019 Niti Aayog came with a development paper for the Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep, and that increased all the heat. Prior also these things was happening, but later on with that debate started, and all stakeholders in it started coming forward and trying to give their perspectives. And recent visit of Prime Minister to Lakshadweep, and then the somewhat linkage with the Maldives geopolitics, all those things again becoming very important. Andaman Nicobar region and the island regions are very significant for us, for their ecology. They have a very unique ecology of rainforest, about mangroves. Besides that, the communities in that living, basically the Onges, Jarvas, Sentinelese, Andamanese, it is considered scientifically that they have reached around 60,000 years before in that region. So a community which has been living, and there is a North Sentinel Island which has not been accessed till date. It is totally communities of those don't allow anybody to access that, and Admiral sir will be adding more information to us. So I'll be requesting each speakers to first give a perspective on from their discipline. We have a sociologist, we have ecologist, and a geopolitical strategist here. And how do they see Andaman? Because now the morning session I was here, and I was seeing they were discussing about the wars, and that region is very critical for us to defend at least the Indian Ocean. So beginning with Dr. Ajay Saini, who has been working in the Andaman Islands, and what is the sociological concerns when it comes to development of these regions, and what he considered to be a development, because that's a very crucial definition. The modern definitions of development are there, and then we have recently got the sustainable development, and the debate of sustainability has come up now. So three things different have come up. So sustainability is overarching of a sustainable development, which talks about only 17 goals, but sustainability takes every perspective into its account. So over to you, Ajay, please.
Thank you, Professor Pande. I'll talk about Andaman and Nicobar Islands by looking at the history of the islands, and then we will try to understand the trajectory of development, the kind of development that we have seen. So, a former lieutenant governor of the islands, Andaman and Nicobar, while presenting this development plan for the islands, he made a very pertinent observation. He said that there are four centers of gravity in the islands. One is these islands are geopolitically very important for the country. Second is the people, and most of them have migrated from the mainland India post the independence. Third is that these islands have five particularly vulnerable tribal groups, PVTGs. And fourth is that the biodiversity, like ecological hotspots. So these are four important factors, and every decision should try to make some kind of, say, balance between among all these four factors. So looking at development, it is important to look at history, and there are insights that history will give us. For instance, I see Andaman and Nicobar Islands as a microcosm as far as the indigenous experience is concerned. Just by understanding these islands, we can understand the experience of indigenous people in the world. So let's start when British came to these islands after the mid of the 19th century, like 1858, they set up a penal settlement. The population of the indigenous people was around or over 8,000. And if you look at the current situation, they have dwindled, like 90% of the community of the indigenous people is finished. So if we look at the development, and if we look at the people in terms of the scale of contact, so let's look at the people who came in contact long term. There are two communities, the Ongi and the Great Andamanese, and their numbers, Ongis are reduced to around 100. And there was a time they had an entire island for them, the Little Andaman. And if we talk about the Great Andamanese, their story is worse. Their number was around 3,000 to 3,500, probably go up to 5,000. But if we look at the current situation, they are reduced to 50. And if we look at the 50, most of them are mixed race people. Now, these are the long-term impacts of the contact that they had with the outer cultures. Now, let's look at the Jarawa people who became friendly towards the end of the 90s. And some of us who are working, analyzing the situation, we see that with the contact, like when they left their quote and unquote hostility towards outsiders, they have become more susceptible to exploitation. Now, let's look at another community which Professor Pande talked about, the Sentinelese. They have an island for themselves, and they prefer to live in voluntary isolation. In November 2018, this one missionary went there, tried to convert the people, not respecting their right. So if we look at the scale, Sentinelese they have protected their island. Their numbers, they remain intact. But if we look at the scale again, the people who came in contact and have a long-term like contact with the outer cultures, they are devastated. So looking at the development from that perspective, a development that does not ensure social justice, it makes no sense. So that is one perspective. Another is environmental justice, which probably Pankaj would talk about. And like a development that creates more troubles for the coming generation, it makes no sense. Now, when we again look at the history of these communities, they have their own ways of conservation. With one small example, I'll end it here. Like I worked my doctoral work in Great Nicobar, and there, like in one village where I conducted fieldwork, we used to go fishing, and we used to catch fish with that hook. And I proposed to this friend of mine who was a Nicobari that I would get them a small eye net and it would save a lot of time. And he made a very pertinent observation. He said, if we have a net, we would be able to catch many fish, and several of them will just go waste. And the god of the ocean would be angry with us. So this is something like, government has recently announced that there would be sanctuaries. Coral sanctuary would be there, megapod sanctuary would be there, and another sanctuary. But if we look in the worldview of the indigenous people, conservation is there. So development, again, we have to look at least two parameters that are very important. One is the social justice, another is the environmental justice. And to me personally, like one yardstick that I see is Gandhi's Tilism. He argues that whenever you are in ambulance, if or not you should take that step, just remember the face of the poorest and the weakest person. And then look if this action is going to make their life better or worse. So just by looking at it, looking at the experience of the indigenous people, if one particular project is going to impact them favorably, is going to help them take control back on their lives, that's a good thing. Again, like John Allen Chow is not a man, it's an ideology. If you look at John Chow was not just like one singular man who went there. He was influenced by this ideology of Great Commission, that he has to go there, convert, and the moment he does that, things will happen, fall in place, Christ will come back. So again, this ideology can come in different ways. A project, for instance, probably, Pankaj would elaborate more on that. Thank you so much, Professor Pande.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay. Quite rightly, you're talking about the contestation between the local communities' cultural values and their ecological values with the modern debate, and that's where the whole problem is lying down, and that solution. I would be inviting our Admiral sir to see how he sees both the geographies from that angle, and then Pankaj can give the ecological angle to that, because sometimes these islands are seen from the defense angle more important, and trade-off with the ecology is also happening. What do you say?
First, I like to set the record straight in one manner, and that is I spent a fair amount of time in Andamans over a period of 40 years that I was in service. I think I went there first time in 1979, and subsequently I kept going there. Then in 91, I commanded a ship there. That ship took me to all the remotest islands and spots, and had interaction with some of these tribes as well. So that was a huge experience. Then again, kept coming part of other assignments for shorter periods, months, and culminated it with almost 4 years as the Commander-in-Chief of the only Tri-Service Command, so Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. They are together there, and I headed that. So I have seen these islands in a very interesting manner, and the kind of development that has happened there, I won't say that it was not required, because we have suffered once you live there. If I tell you stories of 91, ek din matches khatam ho gayi, there are no potatoes, there are no onions. We have lived there. My children were tiny, they were just born then, and milk, etc. So that's another story. But whether it's communications, 4G now, 5G now, similarly the connectivity with the mainland, they have seen tremendous improvement. Uh, Let me, the debate between conservation and development. You see, the development uh, shied away from these islands not out of some great plan. It is just that it was so remote and out of sight, out of mind, too far from Delhi, very little communications. People migrated first after 1947 from mainly from Bangladesh, and subsequently in 65 the Indonesians were making noises, and they are just 90 miles away. So I would say that the government's decision to position ex-servicemen there was a very good decision, and we have seen, uh, uh, you know, this aspect developed there. So much is happening now. So what I want to do, I have a lot of things to say, but let this be a to and fro kind of thing. I'll come back again.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Uh, Now I would like to invite Dr. Pankaj, who has a long association with that. Pankaj, that area is a very ecological hotspot with 7 national parks and 39 sanctuaries and some very critical ecological resources, and the community both are intermingled. What is your take on this case?
Yeah, thank you very much, and also for the opportunity of speaking and very distinguished panel here. I'll just take a few minutes to kind of lay the context with which I'd look at these islands, and I reflect also on the session that happened before lunch on the larger, the larger geopolitics. And what I always kind of struggle with individually and in the way that I look is what happens if we turn the lens around. Now, like Admiral Saab said, the islands are very remote. But what that presupposes is that there is a center at which we are looking at the world from. So, of course, they're very far away from Delhi, they're very far away and very remote from where we are sitting. But obviously, they're not remote from the Indonesians. They're not remote from the perspective of the people in that particular place. So, Delhi is far away if you're in Port Blair. Port Blair may be far away if you're in Delhi. So, this idea of how we look at spaces and in the larger narratives of global history, of war, of larger geopolitics, what ends up being the space, the identity, like this friend of mine in Port Blair used to say कि हमारा वजूद क्या है, हम कौन हैं? Whether I'm a settler, and a very fascinating history of the settlements in these islands. Ajay spoke about it briefly. We of course have the indigenous people who've been there for 40,000, 50,000 years. But over the last 150 years, we have had all kind of communities come there, from the Malabar, from Burma, from Tamil Nadu, from Bengal. A lot of them were actually refugees settled after, the problems that happened in what was East Pakistan. But what is important, I think, for me, and increasingly become important, is whose story are we telling? And what is the space for the story of the tribal, or for the matter, that turtle? That is a nice object for us to kind of look at. I will narrate 2 short stories of two different kinds of things. There is in the waters of the ocean of the planet a huge giant called the giant leatherback turtle. It's a creature that grows up to 6 feet in length, can be 600 kilograms in weight, and I always say that if there was a prize for a gentle giant, it would be a good contender for that giant. Now, what the leatherback does today, tonight maybe, or the night just gone, or maybe 1 week from now, on these remote beaches, the Andaman tribals were there for 50,000 years. The giant leatherback has been on this planet since the time of the dinosaurs. Sea turtles live their entire lives in the ocean. They come to beaches to lay their eggs. And the giant leatherback swims after laying her eggs in the Andaman and Nicobar waters. She goes to the Australian waters, to the barrier reef on the one side. Others, individuals from the same species, go as far as the western coast of Africa. They have been recorded by satellite transmitters. So if we are talking of creatures that connect the world, they connect them in very different ways. And we have always seen as oceans separating parts of the world, but there's a new body of work in literature and in academics that say oceans actually connect, they don't separate. Now, in Great Nicobar Island, we all know of Indira Point, the southernmost tip of political India. Maybe 20 kilometers north of Great Nicobar, of Indira Point, is a bay, which Admiral Verma must have certainly seen, is a bay called the Galathea Bay. It's about a 12 square kilometer bay in which there's a 2.5 kilometer long beach, the most spectacular beach that you can ever see. And on that beach, the giant leatherback comes every winter to lay her eggs. That particular site, along with some others in the Andaman and Nicobar, and this is the site after which, from where she lays her eggs and she goes globetrotting. This site is among the most important giant leatherback nesting sites in the entire northern Indian Ocean. Giant leatherbacks don't nest on mainland India. They used to in Kerala, in the Kerala coast 50 years ago. Some parts of Sri Lanka, otherwise only the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. There's a 2.5 square kilometer long beach in that place. Now, in this bay, today we have proposed, promoted, and completely cleared a 40,000 crore rupee transshipment port project, which will completely destroy this nesting site. And we have, unfortunately, scientists and leading institutions in the country who have said the turtles will not be affected. A bay which has a 3-kilometer mouth opening, which the turtles use to access the nesting site, will be blocked off because there will be breakwaters, limiting the opening to 300 meters. This is 40,000 crore rupees of a transshipment commercial project, which unfortunately the government one day says is a strategic project and then tomorrow says is a transshipment port. It's an economic project. We don't know what's going on. And the biggest tragedy, something that's very little known, is this coastline where this port is coming up. On December 26, 2004, we are in the 20th year of the giant Asian tsunami, if you remember. That happened off the water, just off the coast of Sumatra, 90 miles from Great Nicobar. The day that earthquake happened, 26th of December 2004, Indira Point, if any one of you have seen images of Indira Point Lighthouse, it stands in water today. It stands inside, surrounded by the waters of the Andaman Sea, because the land of the Nicobars saw permanent subsidence of 15 feet on the morning that the earthquake took place. There was an earthquake in the Andaman and Nicobar waters a week ago. There was one 2 days ago. There's an earthquake in those islands once a week on an average. And one of the largest earthquakes, 9.3 on the Richter scale, forced a subsidence of 15 feet. And you want to build a port on exactly that coastline. Is it not? What kind of logic is it? What kind of development is it? The turtle's gone. That investment will also go. Because either today or tomorrow or 5 years later, there is going to be an earthquake of 7 and 8 on the Richter scale. There is likely to be a tsunami. So when we are talking of development, what is this larger vision that we're talking about? And the other small point there is, like Ajay mentioned, that island has a population of only 5,000 people, of which about 600 or 700 are tribal people. The proposal that has been pushed by the Niti Aayog, like he mentioned, says that this island alone of 900 square kilometers will have 300,000 people in 30 years. That is the plan, that is the agenda, that is the vision. The total population of 600 islands in the Andaman and Nicobar today is 400,000 people. I have used much stronger words in what I've written. I'm not going to do that for obvious reasons. We have a report which we are calling this project a monumental folly. Huge, huge folly. 70,000 crores for what? And I want to put that as the foil for my argument on what development is or what should not be. And I just make one small other point and I'll finish. How have we looked at these islands? And this question of what is the center and the periphery. 1965, he mentioned, there's a 1964 or 1965 high-powered a report for the accelerated development of the Andaman Islands by a high-powered committee that comes from Delhi for 4 or 5 days, as typically it happens. Obviously, some senior bureaucrats. They write a 100-page report that sets the agenda for the development of the islands. There are many, many issues with that document. But there are two that stood out for me when I started working there 30 years ago. There's a chapter there called colonization. And it struck me as a much younger person that a country that was a colony till 15 years ago is talking the language of the colonizer. And the agenda of that report is that this is an empty space. This is a place with a few hundred tribal people. We have to accommodate people from the mainland. We have to take charge of that place. We have to colonize that place. It is not an accident that we are using the word colony or colonization. That same report refers to the forest as Jarawa infested. The Jarawa tribal community, like Dr. Pande mentioned, has been there for 50,000 years. It's a small community, forest dwelling community. It's a community in 1956, and I'll finish in a minute. Has 1,000 square kilometers of those islands protected as a Jarawa tribal reserve under Indian law. This is a community that has special provisions in the Indian constitution. And here you have a high part committee that goes and says, this forest is Jarawa infested. In 2014, there are many, many examples. Very well-known political commentator from Delhi, writing in the Hindustan Times, talks of the islands as a prized piece of mid-ocean real estate. Now, why I'm just trying to point all this to you is sets the agenda for what you're going to the place. So then what are these islands? Are they only going to remain adjuncts to the ambitions of a country that has aspirations of a superpower, economically, culturally, socially, whatever it might be? And what for? As an individual, it is not acceptable to me. And what we are doing today, the way we are going ahead, is completely, entirely on that track. And the price that's going to be paid is a very, very, very significant price. Because this island system is so rich. Even today we have birds and animals and plants that are not there anywhere in the world. You go for a 2-month survey, you find something new. The people, the ecology, and even the economics. I think we are on a completely crazy path in the name of development, in the idea of what this country should be. And just really the last point, in 2009, in a defense seminar in Port Blair, the late President Kalam, in his vision for the islands, after the biggest earthquake and tsunami in living memory of this 15 phase of displacement, 5,000 people dying, articulates a vision of a 250 megawatt nuclear power station in that island. It's on record. In one of the world's most tectonically active landscape, why would you want a 250 megawatt nuclear power station? That is not even the need of that island system for energy. So where is that vision coming from? What is being driven by? I think are questions we have to ask. And I'll really stop there. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. And before I moving to other two, I'll just give the information what Niti Aayog has planned. Niti Aayog has planned 10 islands to be under its project. Package 1 has island from Andaman, Nicobar, Smith Island, Ross Island, Long Island, and Aves Island, located in Andaman, Nicobar. Package 2, they have Little Andaman, located in Andaman, Nicobar. Package 3, they are taking Lakshadweep, Minicoy Islands, which is now being talked about where as a solution for Maldives. Bangaram Island, it is in no population lives on that. Tinkara, again no population live on that. Chiraiya and Suheli. So these are the islands which have been identified. Another issue which needs to be discussed basically when we are talking about is, yes, what Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Ajay has raised are the concerns of the rights of the communities as well as the ecology. When this debate came, I was also requested to see it, and I started probing the documents of Ministry of Environment and Forest. So still, at least because they have very systematic process of giving clearances. So the process still now is not clear, just what I have seen in the records, what last meetings have happened. I don't know further meetings what was there. So I would like to now request Admiral sir to respond and followed by Ajay.
That was a very strategic move by me because I'm surrounded both sides by environmentalists, and that's why I stopped short.
We knew that.
I knew where it is going. But I'll just like to mention something about the Island Development Agency. This came about in, I think, 2017. Although from 1986 there was an Island Development Authority, and this is something. This particular body looks after the development of all our islands, not just Andaman. हमारे 1500 के करीब islands हैं, including Lakshadweep. And it has got new sort of energy now. The vice chairman for that is the Lieutenant Governor of Andamans, and the chairman of that is the Home Minister, and even the Prime Minister has been reviewing this whole thing on a very regular basis. There are 44 agenda points, as I noted, seen last time, and there's a commitment of almost 90,000 crores. So once the agenda points, you know how the government works now. If something is there minuted, you know there is a feedback system. All this will happen. There's a fair amount of the interagency, interministerial coordination is much better than it was in the past. And I would say that there are various studies. So there are DPRs for some of the things that have been stated. Personally, I totally support the project that is coming up in the Great Andamans, even from the military point of view. And you have to sort of just argue on the point of environment. It is perfectly all right. But on the other hand, the topography, etc., is very similar here than to what it is in, say, in Myanmar or in Thailand, which is next door. And I happened to go to Phuket last year, spent about 10 days there, spent time in Myanmar also. So it is just that people didn't come here for whatever reasons. But now, because of geopolitical necessities, particularly the military footprint that we want to create there and changing dynamics as far as China is concerned, definitely we require a much stronger foothold. In my 4 years that I was there, I have argued at the highest levels, highest means absolutely highest levels, on the military plans for these islands, chain of islands. And we have to remember that we have at best between 600 to 1,000 aboriginal tribesmen now. And for example, yeah, things have, like from British time, people have come. That Dutch time, people have, we are talking of really going back to 300-400 years ago. But you have to go back to other point that I made, that these islands just missed the development part. Otherwise, they would have been run over like, like Malaysia, like Singapore. They are all part of the same ecology. And similar things would have existed there. But nonetheless, so I mentioned there is a very strong requirement to look after the interest of these people. But like it has been already said, that whether it's Jaravan, I have not interacted with them, but I've flown over those areas extensively. Mention was made about the North Sentinel Island. I must tell you from anecdotal experience. We realized that the Myanmarese poachers, the guys who who go for the sea cucumbers and crocodile, etc., they moved directly from Myanmar to Great Nicobar on the western side. Western side is not inhabited at all. Very little inhabitation on the western side of the island chain. And we realized that they could well be using the North Sentinel Island. Now, North Sentinel Island is completely hands off. Nobody can go there. Even the military cannot operate there at all. So there is a 5 nautical mile no-fly zone around it. But this is the ideal situation for a poacher. He's not recognizing these laws. These are Indian laws. And that is the first time I flew over those islands, and then we changed our SOPs. I did see the North Sentinelese, one single person there, a man, absolutely wiry, thin. And of course, if he had come down any more in the helicopter, the arrow would have come at us. Nonetheless, what we realized is when you look at the other, say, Jaravans, they have developed pot bellies. So I don't want to really go there, but the fact remains there are these 1,000 people. There is 8,000 square kilometer land available in these islands. So we have to look after the interests. It's also true that in the past, attempts have been made to allow them to integrate into the mainstream. But there's a story of one guy. There is this island, not island. So this is a 1,000 square kilometer reserve area they have. And on the fringes of it, we have, normal small towns and villages, etc. So now these people come there, they do barter system, they pick up things also and go, that sort of thing. In the earlier stages in 90s, there's a case where, these guys were stealing, so people chased them, and they chased them. Most of them ran away. So there was this one guy who was left behind. And a young boy, uska पैर टूटा हुआ था, he could not run. So he was picked up, brought to our hospitals, government hospitals. He was looked after for 5 years, sorry, 5 months. And then he was sent back. Later he came back with 24 of his, tribesmen, and they were given a tour, etc. But that guy is still around. There is no attempt by him to sort of come back to this part, mainstream. What I'm saying is that these people have been able to look after themselves in that environment for so many years. So that has to be encouraged. But in the meantime, there is a requirement to develop these islands for various reasons. Now, I go by this aspect that we have to be mindful of the fact there are best practices for all things, and no shortcut should be taken just because the projects are being monitored by the Prime Minister or the Home Minister. Everything should be done with, after all, like it has been brought out, there's Environment Ministry, there are experts committee which are going to comment on that. So we have to do a thorough job. In the meantime, this cannot hold the development of the, we need to develop them on 2-3 counts. One is I mentioned about military. I won't like to go there into that zone, but there is a need as we move into the next century and the later part of this century. We need to have a better presence there, and there is the China looming threat, etc. That is one. The fact also remains, we are looking at our outreach to the Southeast Asia, etc. So this is a springboard for that. We had, for so many years, whether it was sand, whether it was gitti, everything was going from mainland. So there is quarrying, the illegal, all that happens, but all of it goes from mainland. Now, after so many years, some customs regulations and all have been changed. Now, things can be imported directly from, next door, which is just 1/10 the distance. And some of it is happening, but we just don't have the quantity. So the CII chairman then did mention to me that it is not really catching up. I hope that situation has changed. Then similarly, you look at Phuket. So much of tourism is happening there. I mean, it's a gold standard. But now when we start in Andaman, as has been brought out, 10 islands have been earmarked, and there is going to be progress on that. I would only like to say Supreme Court had also earlier given guidance that you should not have low-end tourism here. In other words, this whole place, all these islands will be also overrun. So we have the Maldives model, we have the Bhutan model. We have to do it better than Thailand. If you've seen Phuket, many of you would have. We got to do a better job than that. If Delhi Metro can run better than London Underground or Paris Metro, we need to do a better job. And I think we have a golden opportunity to look at this whole island chain in development purpose, for the development purpose, and do, like I said, we got to do it right. But all that needs to happen as well. I have some other stories, but I think I'll give chance to others to speak, then I'll come back if time is there.
Thank you, Admiral. Now, Ajay, what's your take?
Thank you, Professor Pande. So some of the realities that Vice Admiral Sahab has pointed to are, no one will disagree with those. Even the people in Nicobar will not disagree. So I'll make a point along the lines of Vice Admiral Sahab. I had an opportunity to work with a Gandhian, a senior Gandhian who went to Nagaland in the charged 50s. And interestingly, this man helped building peace. And when Jayaprakash Narayan went there, looked at his work, so he said this is a unique ashram that he has founded. And one very senior person from the defense said that if government gives me like 6 natvars, we don't need, any defense presence. So what I'm saying, I'm not undermining any role of defense. They are doing great job. But what I'm trying to point out is that our borders, as Gandhi had said, when India became independent, there were these borderlands where people had different kind of sentiments. So he argued that we need people to move to those places and integrate them within the spirit of the nation. by nation, I don't mean like one ideology. It is with diversity it comes. And that cannot be possible with coercion. So interestingly, when, I have read in the archives that when Andaman and Nicobars, they became part of India, there was one delegation from Nicobar. It came and then they had their own sentiments. They expressed that to the government, which were not very convenient to the government. But the route that government took at that time was to make sure that these people, they relate more with the country. And that was a time like one of the persons from Nicobar was nominated as the member of parliament, so that these people have a say. Now, looking at these projects, it is important to look at the ecological validity of these reports. Some of the reports, for instance, that I analyzed, look at, for instance, public hearing that argues that the Nicobaris have given a clearance. But interestingly, when you look at the perspective from the Nicobaris, they would say that we were told something else. We were told that, your land will not be harmed, and we are going to, take a land that is empty. Now, this idea of emptiness, as Professor Pankaj has mentioned, it also depends on a gaze, what you see empty. Interestingly, there was a time when people at the highest level in Andaman and Nicobar administration, they were looking at the land rights of indigenous people in Nicobar. Because as per one colonial act, the entire land was under the control of the British government. And when Indian government took it, so they also meant, they believed that this belongs to us. But the Nicobaris, they have their own traditional rights. And in their worldview, every inch of land that might seem just like empty to us, but there is a resource use, and it belongs to the two heads. Interestingly, like if you look at their land use, it's very interesting. Interesting in a sense, they don't have written documents. It's the word, like the oral contracts that go from generation to generations. And I have been working in Nicobar for over a decade. I haven't seen any Nicobaris fighting over land or a piece of property. Right. So in this case, as I argue, the ecological validity, the documents that what they say, do they like actually show us the reality? Now the reality here is, for instance, the tribal council. Just give me a 1 minute, I'll finish it. Like the tribal council would argue that, that a lot of villages have become now the part of the project, and they're going to lose. And interestingly, this has a very interesting trajectory, how these Nicobaris, they are losing the villages. It happened after tsunami, after the tsunami of 2004. Those people were displaced, evacuated from their places. They wanted to go back. They expressed it, like mildly and very strongly also, that we want to go back. But they were rehabilitated at a place, because of apparent reasons, and now they are not able to go back, and now these villages, they have become the part of the project. So again, I would argue that it is important to have defense establishment in border areas, but I also agree that the people living there, they are the best defenders.
That's Ajay. I would now request Pankaj to just give his remark, because again he is in the center. Within a minute, then I would like to open it for the audience, because audience are also waiting for us.
I was just going to say I've already spoken a lot, but I want to just two points I want to make. One is responding to Admiral. Phuket might be this, but is that the only model that we have? If those lands are with us, if those landscapes are, by accident of history, part of modern political India, can we not have a different vision for them? Why are our visions headed in one kind of direction, which are so framed by the idea of economic growth and of development and whatever that? So that's something I want to really ask all of us, and it's a question. It's a question that I have. Why is a reference always a Dubai? I mean, there's a document of the defense of tourism where they speak about we can do this to the islands because look at the Palm Islands of Dubai, and that document has no accounting 10 years after the tsunami that 15 feet of submergence took place. So we have a vision of looking at the Dubais and the Hong Kongs, but we don't know what's happening in our neighborhood. There's a tremendous amount of ignorance. I'm sorry to say that, but that is the reality of the thing. And in a moment of climate crisis today, where everybody is acknowledging that, and that's perhaps one of the biggest concerns where global geopolitics is concerned, this one single project that I'm talking about, in Parliament, the Minister of Environment has said, this project alone is going to cut 1 million trees. 1 million trees in one island landscape, 130 square kilometers, that's 10 lakh trees in one place. And the government Ministry of Environment has said that's okay. We will compensate by afforestation in 260 square kilometers, twice the area in Haryana. This is, this is what the government has agreed. This is what our scientific establishment and bureaucratic establishment has approved. Now we have to, they may have done it, the laws have been followed, but we've been documenting that and I'll show you how those laws have been followed. So I think it's not good enough to say that the ticks have happened. And I know there are many, many bureaucrats here. And I know many of you are very good at that, but I think we have to ask that question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Consensus are not possible on such a critical issues. As now, I would like the audience to ask questions, and I know audience are all the three positions. They are on the defense position, they are on the human-centric positions, and they are a deep ecologist position. So we invite there. Please, madam. Yes. Introduce yourself and your questions to whom you are addressing.
I'm Jyoti Dikshit, wife of Commander Ravi Dikshit, Indian Navy, retired. And I would like to ask Admiral Verma, from the defense point of view, what military development has taken place I'm not aware of. So please, can you tell us in Andaman Nicobar Islands?
I did mention, suffice to say that we have a live border with China on the northeast, and we on the western side we have a live border with Pakistan. So Andaman's and infrastructure, their military infrastructure, the pecking order, the prioritization, and all it doesn't, it never figured kind of thing. So now, particularly with the growing China, there is a need to build. So I won't like to get into details, but I would like to say that in a phased manner, there is a commitment of the government to take that forward. That we need to increase our footprint there, and this is, it's really located very strategically in a very important location. So whether we position things there and all is another matter, but at least the infrastructure needs to come up where we can support military operations. And we have to look at 50 years hence. If we are talking of Great Nicobar development, it is true we have been able to keep it like this for so many years. I have lived in that isolation. I'm talking of Great Nicobar. I've been to the places that have been mentioned. But time has to come. In the changing world and the things that are happening, it's not a museum. We are trying to keep it as a. I would like all that to happen. It's very important. Not that we are against anybody's against conservation, but this debate of conservation versus development is a very tricky one, and it is best that both things can happen. But eventually who loses, and that's also we know. I don't know what will happen 50 years from now, but 50 years from now, I want a Great Nicobar to be a very important commercial hub. It is important for us, our country. So that's my thinking. And as far as the military infrastructure is concerned, I think I've tried to answer. So all over in the islands, right from north to south, the plans are there. And when monies are committed, they will see the light of the day.
Yeah. Next, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Amazing view. Sir, my name is Amit. I'm faculty at NLI Bhopal. So, we human beings, we don't know what is going to happen in the future. We learn from the past. So if we are talking about, like, say, we are going to the Dubai model or, like, say, Phuket or something of that sort, but we look at the Himalayas, what we did with the Joshimath, Rudramath, or these places, are we actually going to do with the Andaman or Nicobar? Like, if we say that to counter China, we need strategic position in the Andaman or Nicobar, China is doing something with the trade. They are not fighting with us directly. The army is not coming to us. So, like, how we are looking at to balance this China thing with the kind of thing we are proposing to do with the Andaman and Nicobar? Like,
ये सवाल किससे पूछ रहे हो अमित?
So, obviously, the kind of work Ajay has done in Admiral, like, they both have the, direct.
Ajay.
These are they are on the two sides, you really can't bring them together. They are two very difficult questions, and there are no easy answers. When I say military infrastructure, doesn't mean that, you have soldiers on the ground, you got all kind of things there.
you know, you need, for example, I'm just telling you, you need to operate fighter jets from there. So you need to create infrastructure. So there are already existing airfields there. There may be requirement to just expand them. You know, you have to create infrastructure, you know, hangars, hangarage, etc. Some equipment has to be. It's not that we are, one is looking to militarize the whole island. That's not the thing. We need to just create the facilities in the, we already present there. In Great Nicobar, military is present. In the Car Nicobar, which is, you know, these are all reserved areas. So their military is there. And this is a slow sort of journey of our country. And similarly in Shibpur, you know, there is a landfall island. The Myanmar is just next door to us, and there are cocoa islands next to that. You know, they're 18 miles from our northernmost point. We have good relations with Myanmar, but on the other hand, China is doing a lot of things there. So we cannot overlook that they're next to us, you know, sniffing distance. So, for example, in Landfall Island, there's no water, there's no potable water. So, in my watch, you know, there is something called, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there is a CAPF, IRB, and they call them. So, they tried staying there, it was impossible. Then we put up a detachment there. So, invariably, you know, there are Myanmaris coming on our territory and living there. You know, that is the situation. So, it used to be much more earlier. Now, at least, you know, we have a better handle on things. At least, you know, foreigners and other Myanmaris particularly, they don't come and just get into wherever they want. But still, you know, the area is so much, it is still porous. I mean, it is a work in progress, I would say, that in the meantime, I do get your point. It is not that, you know, people like us are against conservation. I have enjoyed the serenity of that place so much. I spent 6 years there. So all that is fine, but, you know, we just because on that card, the development which we have achieved for so long, that cannot happen. You know, for the right or wrong reasons, there is a requirement to relook at these islands, and surely people sitting in Delhi have that vision. You know, I mean, that's the way it works.
Ajay would like to say something.
So this is a very interesting question, and it comes with an answer itself. So as I look at, like, the Nicobar defense establishment, for instance, if we see on those islands, interestingly, the Nicobaris, people, wherever they find it's reasonable, they always support it. I mean, like Kardip, if we look at, you know, in Car Nicobar and in Great Nicobar. Interestingly, one part of history I would like to share with you. So Air Force wanted to extend their base in Car Nicobar. They needed some land. So the Nicobaris, they have traditional rights over land. The Nicobaris said they won't part away with their land for obvious reasons. So interestingly, instead of like coercing them, administration invited them to the Prime Minister's place, and Prime Minister said that as you are the head of your island, I'm the head of this country, and I'm requesting you. So would you please give that thing to me, because we need it. And that guy said, yes, we'll do it. And he said, okay, in return, what do you want? And he said, you know, I like your jacket, give the jacket to me. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that there are certain realities, okay? No one can disagree with those. But people in those areas, I see they are the best defenders. And any decision that we take, there should be a dialogue. And the dialogues of equals. I mean, they should not be that we are throwing a decision on them, that it is required, the raison d'etat dictates it, so we need it. No, reason with them, discuss with them, and listen to them also. So it is important to listen to them. Why would they resist something? It is important to listen to that. With that, I think.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
just
a
have
good.
one last
Yeah.
question. Right there.
Now a
towards
choice
the
between to a lady and a Rakesh Devanji, please. You are raising before.
पंकज सलाम राकेश दीवान हूँ जर्नलिस्ट हूँ और आपकी सारी बात सुनते हुए मुझे एक शोध की याद आई किसी अमेरिकन विश्वविद्यालय का एक शोध है जिसमें ये पता चला कि हमारे जो नीति निर्माता हैं या हमारे पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स हैं वो नीम पागल हो गए और नीम पागल होने का एक संकेत ये होता है कि वो एक ही बात बार बार कहते हैं और इससे मेरा सवाल यही है कि हम अब 72 साल के हो गए 75 साल के अमृतकाल मना लिया हमने 75 साल में ये बैठ के देखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है कि हम कहाँ पहुँचे हैं। अभी उन्होंने उदाहरण दिया जोशीमठ का। जोशीमठ के कुछ मित्र हैं जो कह रहे हैं कि अगले 10-15 साल में शायद उत्तराखंड और हिमाचल प्रदेश नाम का इलाका बचेगा भी नहीं, इतनी तेज़ी से वहाँ। और यही सो कॉल डेवलपमेंट, यही आर्ग्यूमेंट है जो एडमिरल साहब ने दिए, वही आर्ग्यूमेंट उस समय दिए, अभी भी दिए जा रहे हैं। वो जोशीमठ ख़त्म हो गया, अभी देहरादून में अभी सवाल खड़ा होने लगा है, और जगह भी खड़ा हो रहा है, उत्तराखंड के तमाम पहाड़ों में हो रहा है। लेकिन आर्ग्यूमेंट जो दिया जा रहा है स्टेब्लिशमेंट की तरफ से, मेरा कहना है कि आप हमारे लोग हैं भाई, थोड़ा बैठ के अपनी गलती पर भी तो उंगली रखिए। बार बार आप एक ही चीज़ को क्यों ठोक रहे हैं? और मैं पंकज से भी कहूँगा और आपसे भी कहूँगा कि इसका एक पूरा स्टॉक टेकिंग होनी चाहिए कि 75 साल में जो भी इन द नेम ऑफ डेवलपमेंट हुआ है, चाहे वो जो भी हुआ हो, मध्य प्रदेश में हुआ हो, उत्तराखंड में हुआ हो, दक्षिण में हुआ हो, कोस्टल एरियाज़ में जैसा पंकज ने रखा, बहुत ही सुंदर। तो ये सारी चीज़ों का स्टॉक टेकिंग होनी चाहिए, तब आप डेवलपमेंट की बातचीत कर सकें।
Is that also a question?
It is, yes, it is a question.
किससे चाह रहे हैं जवाब?
आप सबसे, ऑडियंस से भी, और पंकज से, और इनसे मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि आप तीनों पैनलिस्ट जो हैं इस बारे में विचार करें कि क्या हम स्टॉक टेकिंग कर सकते हैं, क्या ज़रूरी है लगता है आपको, या आप यही गाना गाते रहेंगे लगातार?
मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा छोटा जवाब हो सके तो थोड़ा सा।
देखिए, ये तो अपने पॉलिसी इश्यूज़ के लिए नीति आयोग के लिए सवाल रखा है, हमारे लायक वो भी नहीं है। तो आई वुड लाइक टू कंक्लूड, हमारे रिसर्च में कहते हैं कि देयर आर विकेड प्रॉब्लम्स। ये सारे एनवायरनमेंट के सारे प्रॉब्लम्स विकेड प्रॉब्लम्स है, दे डोंट हैव ए लीनियर सॉल्यूशंस, they have multiple solutions which needs to be addressed very differently, and there has to be trade offs. अगर आप जाएंगे तो 5-6 प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, उस प्रिंसिपल्स में कोई एक ट्रेड ऑफ आपको लेना पड़ता है, क्योंकि दैट यू हैव टू डू इट। एंड आप जो कह रहे हैं कि जोशीमठ आदि का न ज़मीन जाने वाली न पहाड़ जाने वाला, जाने वाले वहाँ के समुदाय हैं, खतरे तो इंसान को हैं। तो इंसान अपने खुद मैंने खाली सारा कुछ सरकार का भी नहीं, वहाँ जाएंगे तो लोगों ने भी अपने विकास जो किए हैं उनके लिए स्वयं भी जिम्मेदार हैं। हम कई जगह जो अभी आप कहीं देखेंगे, जो जब ये बद्रीनाथ का हुआ था तो किनारे पे थे। तो इट इज़ ए मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, इट इज़ नॉट जस्ट गवर्नमेंट्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज और academicians and researchers responsibility, is the responsibility of all. So I would like to thank the panel for generating the energy, especially, and there was and that too, yeah. I could see people were very active after खाने के बाद भी, तो अच्छा है। And yes, Ajay has that he follows the Gandhian principles of interacting with people and having a public debate and discussions and taking it. Quite rightly, Admiral sir has its defense, and they are very clear with their agendas and their goals, and they cannot trade off. There's less choice for them to trade off things because security is the most importance for them. And coming to Dr. Pankaj, yes, there are the threats to ecologies and challenges to ecologies, but such debates will generally bring these things on the platform of discussions, and such concerns will be surely taken care, because there are ecologists all across countries and debating. So thank you for three of you for sharing your viewpoint. And consensus was not possible. I knew that this topic cannot have a consensus. And over to the organizers.
Thank you so much, Professor Amitabh ji. Thank you so much, Pankaj ji. Thank you so much, Admiral Bimal ji. And thank you so much, Ajay ji, for being there. Now I would like to invite Brigadier Sanjay Agrawal ji on stage, the founder member of Society for Culture and Environment, to please present a memento as a token of love and appreciation to our guests. I would like to request him to be on stage, and let us all give this panel a round of applause, everybody, for that insightful discussion. And I'm sure कुछ और भी सवाल आपके मन में होंगे, जो सवाल आप नहीं पूछ पाए हैं. I'll be requesting our panelists to head towards the author's signing desk just besides Antarang. वहाँ पे वो रहेंगे, वहाँ पे आप उनकी बुक उनसे साइन भी करवा सकते हैं, सवाल जवाब भी कर सकते हैं. एंड जो आप ये खूबसूरत मेमेंटो देख रहे हैं, this memento is the mascot of the BLF 2024, is developed by senior Gond artist Sri Ram Singh Urveti ji. It reflects a motif rooted in timeless stories, and it depicts the gods dancing in the sacred villages, and a beautiful painting, the beautiful memento of BLF 2024. This particular piece chosen for the year's highlight shows how ideas of